The Legend of the Seasons, as told by the old man. Robert Fitton, Mr. Turner, March 8th, 1977. Defies all scientific reason, said Watson. I quite agree, said Sanford. It astounds me how any group of people could dress in such bizarre costumes and paint themselves with such bright colors, he added. Watson pointed to the ceremony that was beginning in the clearing. He said, Look at those odd rituals, Sanford, and the meaningless singing. They are truly savages. No, Watson, Sanford disagreed. They are like children, content with their games and songs. They have no ambition for progress, nor do they have any meaning of the word civilization. The two men proceeded to the edge of the clearing. A tall tree was in the center of the clearing, and many men were in a circle around the tree. Many other men were standing on the outside of the clearing and watching the ceremony. The men of the tribe were tall and well-formed. They stood straight with their arms folded across their chests, and they intently watched the ceremony. Sanford tapped his finger on the shoulder of one of the men who had red, yellow, orange, and green feathers attached to his clothing and outlining the limbs of his body. The man showed no response as Sanford tapped again. Excuse me, sir, he said. What is the value of this? What do you gain from this? The man turned towards Sanford, and with an expressionless face, he slowly shook his head. He raised his right arm and pointed his forefinger in the direction of a large, round lodge. Both men shrugged their shoulders and walked toward the lodge. The lodge was a structure of cowskin walls. The walls were painted with brightly colored animals and adorned with numerous buffalo tails. Near the base of the dwelling was a very small entrance. The two men crouched down and lowered their heads to enter the lodge. Once inside, Watson turned his head in a semicircular motion. His marveling eyes jumped from the brightly colored cowhide to the airspace above, and they came to rest on an old man sitting on a couch. It was 6 feet long and directly opposite the doorway. The old man was surrounded by his family and was joking with them. His wives and daughters were on his right and his sons were on his left. Sanford whispered to Watson, I didn't know that these people were at all jovial. Before Watson could answer, the old man noticed their presence. He instructed them to sit on his left. The old man's lined face revealed his advancing age. As the two men stared at the weather-beaten face, Watson abruptly spoke. Sir, we would like to know how the game outside benefits your tribe. He paused. What is the logic behind it? The old man pressed his lips together and slowly raised his white eyebrows as he spoke. Logic and benefit are the words of another world, the what Jesus world. You cannot experience our knowledge unless you enter the world of the people. It is the world of faraway days and the wartime. That world is here with the people. It is our world, and we believe in it. Sir, you mean that we're being slightly critical, suggested Sanford. The old man did not answer Sanford's question. Instead, he looked up toward the opening in the lodge, and then he looked pensively at the entrance. Then he said, I will tell you as it was told to me when I was young. It may be true to you. When you listen, you will see that it is true. When the world was warm in the faraway days, the people had food all the time. The air was warm and fresh with the fragrance of wild flowers and running water. The sky was always blue and the grass was always tender and green. This was true for all the time. Suddenly, without warning, the world became old. Our corn rotted on the stalks. The leaves curled on the branches and the wildflowers died. We saw the sky only when the clouds did not come. The sun crossed its path lower in the sky, bringing ice to our fresh streams and snow to our rich fields. Many animals died. The people had no food and starved, the sun stayed away. The warm time came again, bringing a new life to the people, and all was as it was before. The people gave thanks to the sun, but he did not listen, and the cold time came again without warning. Soon the air was warm. The people did not know when the cold time would come. This happened many times, and many died. Our life continued. It happened that when Fleeing Truth wanted very much to marry Owl Eyes, the daughter of Wing of Eagle, he gave the old man 3 of his best horses, 2 white and 1 black. The old man would not give his consent. Next, Fleeing Truth gave the old man several tongues of buffalo, but the old man seemed preoccupied. Fleeing Truth rode at night to the enemy camp and returned the next morning with several scalps. He presented them to Wing of Eagle, but the old man turned the scalps aside. Fleeing Truth could remain silent no longer. "What is wrong, Wing of Eagle? I am a strong warrior. I have given you my best horses. I have shared buffalo, and I have brought you the scalps of our enemies. But still, you do not consent. Tell me, how am I to gain your daughter?" Wing of Eagle looked at the young man with sadness in his eyes and said, "The people are dying. We do not know when the warm time will come again. We must survive." Fleeing Truth, knowing that he had failed, kept his feelings to himself, and he walked back to his father's lodge. He prepared his bag with dried buffalo meat and some berries. He took his blanket from the floor and climbed onto his horse. His good friend, Little Fox, met him as he approached the outside of the village. "Where are you going, Fleeing Truth?" he asked. Fleeing Truth looked down at his friend and spoke softly. "I have failed, Little Fox, and I am very sick. Wing of Eagle will not give Owl Eyes to me. I must go to the mountains and see what I must see." "You must do what you must do, Fleeing Truth," assured Little Fox. Fleeing Truth said no more and rode to the mountains, thinking of Owl Eyes. Owl Eyes was very sick, for she liked Fleeing Truth very much. She thought that her father would see that Fleeing Truth was brave. When this did not happen, she thought that Fleeing Truth would take her away. She waited. If he did not come soon, then she would take her own life. Fleeing Truth neared the frozen river, and his horse began to cross on the ice. He remembered when the water was fresh and cooling in the warm air. Now the cold wind swept upon him as he neared the middle of the wide river. Without warning, his horse plunged through a soft spot in the ice, and Fleeing Truth entered the freezing water. When he tried to surface, he could only see the ice that was above him. He frantically tried to find the spot where he had fallen, but he could not find it. Desperately, he scratched the ice. His lungs burned with dead air. In the darkness, he saw a bright place, and he moved toward it. Fleeing Truth had used all his air, and it left his lungs. He began to fall asleep. The water around him became warm, and his body rose to the surface of a large pool. Fleeing Truth awoke as his head came above the water. The sky was bright yellow, but there was no sun, and the air was very warm. He swam toward the sandy shore in order to escape the hot water. He ran out of the water, and he fell onto the sand. He slept. When he awoke, he saw that he was next to a large plant. The plant transformed itself into a young maiden called Seed of Hope. He asked the maiden where he was. She did not know. He began to tell her of his problem and the problem of his people. She smiled and turned toward the east, raising both her arms. "The grandson of all being will help you. I do not lie, fleeing truth, she said. You must cross the hot sand until you reach the edge of the world. The grandson of all being is in that place. Fleeing truth was skeptical. I have no food or water, and the desert is wide. I will die. The plant maiden gave him 4 kinds of seeds. Eat the first seed when you are beginning, the second seed when the air is warmest, and the third when you feel cold at night, and take the last when you can go on no more. The last seed will give you strength to reach the end. He took the seeds, and the plant maiden became a plant once again. Fleeing truth swallowed the first seed, which was a yellow one. He felt an inner strength and began his journey. The journey would be a long one, for he could see nothing but red sand extending to the horizon under the yellow sky. After he had been gone for a short time, the air became hotter, and fleeing truth had trouble breathing. He could not walk because the sand was burning his feet. He fell onto the burning sand. Thousands of grains burned his body, and he quickly reached into his bag and pulled out a red seed. Fleeing truth was lifted to his feet. The air was good, and he could walk with no pain. Many hours later, the sky darkened, but there were no stars, no moon, and the air became cold. Fleeing truth had no clothing for the cold weather, but he knew that he must go on. Soon, snow began to fall, and it fell faster than he had ever seen it fall. The cold wind blew the snow against his body. He tried to go forward, but he could not fight the wind and the snow. As he reached for his bag, the wind swooped it down and took it away. He fell onto the snow and grabbed desperately for the bag. It was gone, but he did feel a seed, an orange one. He put it into his mouth and swallowed it. His strength returned, but he could not find his bag. He moved forward with no difficulty. Soon the sky became yellow. Soon the snow had stopped and it had melted in back of him. The way ahead seemed clear, but fleeing truth was hungry and tired. He moved very slowly. When he could go no further, he reached for his bag, but it was not there. Again he fell to the ground. The grandson of all being knew that fleeing truth had come a long way, and he would not let him die. He sent his 12 moons to save him. Third moon placed a green seed into fleeing truth's mouth and awoke. He could see that he was inside a circle of moons. The first moon was an old man. The second was older, and the third moon was the oldest. Fourth moon was an infant. Fleeting truth saw that the moons got older as the circle progressed from left to right. The moons spoke in unison. We will take you to the grandson of all being. You will stay in the circle as we walk to him. Fleeing truth stood on his feet and began to walk with the moons. In a short time, they were at the edge of the world. It was very warm there. As he looked over the edge of the world, he could see the grandson of all being in a mass of yellow flames in the distance. Fleeing truth tried to speak, but the grandson of all being spoke first.
You have come a long way, fleeing truth, and I have not forgotten you.
Fleeing truth spoke.
I am grateful, grandson of all being, but my people are cold, and I have no wife. Why do you go away so suddenly and stay so low in the sky? Have the people offended you? No,
said the grandson of all being.
I am the light and the warmth of the people, but I cannot stay high in the sky, for I will burn the land, and the people will perish. It is better that I move away, stay low in the sky, and let the world cool. I will return with the sustenance of life.
He looked at the sweat on the forehead of Fleeing Truth.
You must not stay here, Fleeing Truth, or you will perish. You must know when the time is that I go away. You must do as I tell you.
Fleeing Truth listened in order to learn the knowledge for all his people. The grandson of all beings spoke.
12 men must gather around the highest tree. 9th man will be painted orange. The vision man of the people will paint his body with the colors of the forest seeds that were given to you. A young maiden will gather the forest seeds and give them to the vision man as he enters the circle. The vision man will plant the yellow seed next to the 4th man, and the red seed next to the 7th man, and the orange seed next to the 9th man, and the green seed will be put next to the 3rd man. The vision man will fall to the ground before he plants the seeds. The 12 men will sing this verse while the seeds are planted around the tree. Grandson of all being gives us seeds of hope. Grandson of all being gives us seeds of hope. Grandson of all being gives us seeds of hope. Grandson of all being gives us seeds of hope. Red, yellow, orange, green. We plant them around the tree to the sky. Our lives are saved for now, we know. When the cold time will come. Cold time will come. Cold time will come. Cold time will come. And the warm time too. Warm time too.
The grandson of all being continued.
The seeds will grow and the tree will spread their color. Before the cold time comes, the leaves of the trees and most trees will turn yellow, red, and orange. Some trees will stay green, so the people will know that I return. The moon will rise with an orange hue. Then the people will know that the cold time is coming. The people will harvest their crops and kill their buffalo before the cold time. They will survive. The green seed will keep some trees green, and it will give all trees and plants the strength when they cannot go on anymore. When the tender grasses show themselves through the snow, the people will know that the warm time is coming very soon. It is at this time when the food is low and all looks bleak that the people will perform the ceremony I have told you.
Fleeing Truth asked,
How will I return, grandson of all being? I will die because I cannot cross that way that I have come.
Grandson of all being spoke for the last time.
You will enter the cave at the edge of the world. 3rd moon will be your guide. On the other side is your village. When you return, Owl Eyes will be your wife. Goodbye, Fleeing Truth.
Fleeing Truth thanked the grandson of all being in the 3rd moon, lifted him over the edge of the world, and they entered the cave. They wandered in the dark passageway for a short time. Soon they emerged out of the cave and at the edge of the mountain in back of the people's village. When they looked back, the cave became rock, just like the rest of the mountain. 3rd moon fled to the sky. Fleeing Truth hurried back to his village. He told his father about his vision. His father sent him to the vision man.
The cold time may come soon,
said the vision man.
If your vision is true, then we will know.
The first time ceremony was performed, and the people felt good from this. Many moons later, after the leaves began to change their colors, the moon rose orange. The people gathered their food and they stored it. Very soon the sun slowly went low in the sky. When the air became cold and the snow came, the people survived. Wing of Eagle knew that Fleeing Truth was worthy of his daughter, and he gave her to him. Many of the people gave gifts to Fleeing Truth, and they built a large lodge for him. He lived long, was well known, and always respected by the people. The old man said no more. He arose and went out to the ceremony. Watson looked at Sanford and said, "That's a nice story, but what good does it do them?"
We know that the color of the leaves is caused by the decomposition of the pigments of the leaf, and the color of the moon is caused by the bending of light. These events will occur regardless of what these savages do. Sanford agreed. You're right, Watson. We will learn very little here. Let's go back.